you're so much closer than you realize to the life you want to live. And it's often just a lens or a way of thinking that prevents you from actually experiencing it. So get out your journal, start getting the stuff out of your head, and start intentionally choosing what you're going to allow to hang out in your mind, because it's definitely having an impact.
Our guest today is on a mission to ignite possibility and equip people with the mindsets and tool sets to create meaningful, productive, and fulfilling lives. By applying these tools over the past 2 decades, she has innovated and created a fulfilling life of her own, including a whole, loving, growing, thriving marriage of 20 plus years. She's raised 2 kind, independent, resilient young men, and she found her love for journaling and launched her first company, Sanity Journals, in 2005. Welcome to the show, host of Differently, my friend, Carla Reeves.
Yay. Thank you so much, Mike. I'm so excited to be here.
Carla, this is awesome. I'm going to joke real quick, guys. We always say like 3 times the charm. We've had so many technical difficulties getting Carla on. It's not her fault. There's some things out of our control. So I feel like we have 9 lives here. We're going to get this done today. She's coming to us from Arizona. I'm in sunny Buffalo, New York right now as we record. Welcome to the show, Carla. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, so excited to be on your show now.
Yes, I had the opportunity, guys. Go back. I checked the date. April 6th, I was on Differently. I had a blast. And Carl, I want to tell you, I've been interviewed quite a few times now and been blessed to be on other shows. You really did a great job. I felt like, even though we did it virtually, I felt like we're hanging out, kind of like having a cup of coffee. It was very comfortable. You did your homework and you were very prepared and easy to talk to. So I'm excited today to return the favor. Guys, check Carla out at carlareeves.com. Again, her podcast is called Differently. Go back to April 6th and watch the episode with me if you're interested in a little bit more in my backstory. And she's doing well. She's a top 10% most downloaded podcast in the world. All right, let's kick into a little bit of your backstory, Carla. So share how journaling was a life-changing tool, as I mentioned in the intro, that led you to become an entrepreneur and, as you say, a lifepreneur.
Yes. So journaling has been kind of a tool throughout my life, but really became a really powerful tool after I became a mom. And I found myself, I had my first son and he was about 8 months old. And I started to feel a little bit like I was losing my own sanity. And I looked around me and saw so many moms that honestly seemed quite miserable, and that would ripple to the way that they parented. And I knew that's that's what I didn't want, but I wasn't really sure how to, do differently. And I felt at the same time, I felt God calling me to write. And I listened and I just would write in the nooks and crannies of my life any moment I had. And over a long period of time, I don't even know how long it was, but months later, I was sitting on the edge of my bed, kind of like flipping through the pages of my journal, and really was floored by what had happened. I had set out with this mission to figure out how to be a happy mom because I felt like that was one of the greatest gifts I could give my kids. And not only had I figured out how to take better care of myself so that I could be that, but I had tapped into my creativity and my spirituality deeper. And I had peeled layers of self acceptance that I had tried to peel for years. And like all of this, I just like sitting there going, wow. And in that moment, I knew I'm here to teach people how to use the tool of writing and journaling to help them navigate their life. And that's really where it was born.
And it sounds like it was a great internal tool. Now, have you gotten to a place where you share your journals with anybody else? Is that something that you recommend people do? Or is it really designed to, is it kind of up to the writer, right? If they want to share them, go for it. But is it something that you first teach people to use as an internal tool to kind of get in touch with themselves?
Yeah, that's interesting. So when I set out I created a company around Sanity Journals, to teach that. And at the same time, I met a company that was also passionate about journaling, and they were actually coaching with a journal. And I ended up partnering with them and using their online software. And I went to the president one day and I'm like, I want to grow this business, but I'm not sure what to do. Would you mentor me? And she said, I think you should go through our coaching program. I think you know what to do. You're just in your own way. And so I did go through their coaching program. The coaching was great, but they coached with a journal. So I would journal online and my coach would read my journal and comment back, and then we would have conversations. And that's what I fell in love with. I fell in love with this idea of marrying a journal with a coach to really help people change their lives. And so I still do that today. I still use that with my clients. So they have the option to journal privately, but in the first part of our work together, it's really important that they share that with me. And you're right, it is an internal tool. And that's the whole idea is we're so, especially the people I work with, are so focused externally that this is a chance to actually kind of quiet that and go inside for a change.
I like what you said there because you're using it as a tool that you're getting coaching, you're getting that one-on-one experience, and sometimes people may have a hard time actually sharing something maybe verbally or directly or in the moment with a coach, but they'll be willing to write it down and then have them read it, maybe not in the moment, maybe they read it, they come back to you at the next meeting and now they have some information that they would have not gotten if it was just you weren't ready to share it, but you were ready to write it down. I think that's beautiful. That's great
Mm.
advice for anybody. I think whether it's a relationship, going through some stuff in business, at work with a coach, if you write it down, then later on you can decide who you want to share it with, and get that coaching. So in that same line of thought right now, I was looking at your website and I read that for years you actually were making everything look good on the outside, right? But at that same moment, you were feeling empty on the inside. I can relate with this. I've had personal struggles in my personal life that even led into business and things in the past. Went through the divorce as I shared on your podcast as well, and there's different moments of not feeling fulfilled. So I know that emptiness feeling, even when the exterior looks great and you're putting it your best face on for Instagram. Walk us through your journey though. How were you able to actually find real fulfillment?
So, yeah, similar to you, a lot of years ago, I was, going through, went to college, graduated college, got a great job, got married, checking all those boxes that I thought would lead to that happy, successful life. And while, like you said, it looked good on paper, I had become a master at making everybody happy. Well, so I thought, right? Like, adjusting myself to make other people happy and showing up for people, pleasing people, doing all the things in order to gain that approval that I didn't have within myself, right? And so my life just felt like at the mercy kind of my circumstances and the feedback or approval I was getting. And so if I was getting the right feedback from my job and the people around me, I felt pretty good. But the moment that went away or I screwed something up, that would plummet. And I was just exhausted of the roller coaster. And at the same time, I was in the middle of a marriage that was falling apart and ended up in divorce. And that was a huge turning point in my life because I never imagined myself there. But it turned out to be a great gift because it was that moment that I knew in my heart there was something different, like a different way of doing life, but I just didn't know how. And at that point, I kind of threw my hat over and just said, I'm making it my mission to figure this out. And I just set out to do that. And so it didn't happen overnight, right? I mean, building a fulfilling life is not like a once and done. It's like an everyday, it's an everyday practice.
Yeah, really great insight there. There's no magic pill. There's no, you do these three steps and you're going to get it immediately. I mean, there's different things you can do that accumulates over time. And thank you for sharing that with me. I know it's tough to go back there and even think about some of those tougher times. It's great now to see and reflect because you're in a great place today with your family. I got to see your son, helping you off camera for a moment while we were preparing for this interview. And I know that you have a great relationship with both of your boys. And when I just asked you a little bit about them, I don't know if you realize this, but your energy really was emitting that you're very proud of them. And,
Mm,
I also love when someone talks about their spouse too, and they're off camera just doing something, but you can tell the way they talk about them that they actually do care and that they're in the relationship with them, opposed to like, oh yeah, my husband, this and that, or my wife, this and that. You can tell that someone's
mm,
kind of like jaded. So I love your family energy and the fact that you are fulfilled today and that you did things differently to get here. It's not the cookie cutter. Everybody has the same way of achieving their fulfillment, which is why I wanted you on the show because, I want to encourage people that they can find their voice and their way. And journaling is something that we haven't really covered a lot on the show, but I wanted people to realize it's a great way to get there and to kind of download the stuff that's in their brain onto a sheet of paper or onto a computer screen so you can work through it. Very beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. I want to ask you though, was there someone in your life that was a role model that kind of helped get this greatness out of you? Was it someone like a family member or somebody that you kind of watched from afar?
hmm. So many, I think so many role models. I mean, my parents, for one, they're both passed now, but they were just such a great model of making the most of whatever they had, like throughout their life. My dad was an entrepreneur, had his own business for as long as I can remember. And they knew how to work hard, but they knew how to play hard. And they always created incredible time as a family to get away from the business and like have really quality time. And the two of them would go off and play together, and they took care of their marriage. And as they got older, like their life began to shrink and their world began to shrink, because they just weren't able to do a lot. My mom got dementia, and but even up until like the last days in which they lived together, they were still just making the most of just the simplest of things, And so they taught me that for sure. I had another mentor in my life that really showed me that that you don't have to believe everything you think, and that you could change the relationship with your thinking. And that was life altering for me. That was that coaching company that I ended up getting my certification with, and I worked side by side with her for 6 years. And so not only integrating this in my own life, but then learning to teach other people how to do it. And so that's a game changer. It's still a game changer. I use that every day. And then I think my husband today he's been a huge mentor in my life. I'm a high achiever, hyper achiever, and he's very calm and grounded and soulful and like in the moment. And we really have learned to balance each other well.
I love to hear that. That's awesome. Shout out to your family. Cheers to your beautiful family, your husband, your two
Ah,
boys.
thank you so much. I
Yeah,
appreciate that
yeah.
you recognize that we've worked really hard on building our home and life together.
Well, it's inspiring to me. I'm going to be very candid right now. Um, I had my divorce. I have a great relationship with my daughter. She's now 8, Isabel. Shout out to Isabel. Beautiful daughter. She's just man. Everybody says it's your why and stuff like that. I mean, that's an understatement for what excites me about being a great dad and why I do everything I do. But I love also seeing someone who, had kind of a comeback story and now they have this beautiful thing. Cause I know that's coming for me at the right time and everything. I continue to put good energy out into the world. I know that that will find me. So I love celebrating other people who have it. I think a lot of times people have this conception that like if somebody's divorced they have to be like disgruntled and stuff. It's like no, like marriage is a beautiful thing. I love seeing people happy and have a beautiful thing, and we need to celebrate it more. And it's something that like you see the divorce rates so high and everything. It's not easy. So when you see someone who is just with the right life partner, I think it's a beautiful thing and it's worth celebrating for sure, not to take that for granted. I want to hit on a few things here. So, of course, we're talking about your backstory, some of the influence that came into your life, the journaling side of things, but I want to give our audience a little bit of a 101 lesson today. Some of the essentials that you found that you really needed to create that deep, rich, fulfilling life. Were there some things that you definitely feel go into that mix?
Yeah. So, you know, in my backstory, I felt at the mercy of my circumstances. I felt like I was just kind of at the whim of whatever was happening or not happening in my life or the people in my life. And I had zero power. And that's a horrible feeling. And I think coming out of that, like I never wanted to feel like that again. I never wanted to feel trapped by my circumstances. And I can see looking back that that's really been a driving force to figure out how to be innovative and creative and what abilities are within me that I can use to ongoingly create new pathways in my life so that I don't feel trapped. And I think the mind is such a powerful tool. And that's why it's, a thread of what I teach is really around using your mind, leveraging your mind to create new options and possibilities in your life. You're never trapped. And we have so much more power and influence than we realize. And so, using your mind and recognizing, paying attention, cleaning up what is hanging out in your head, right? We live here 24/7. And for me, my head was noisy, it was cluttered, it was crowded, it was negative, it was constantly, pushing me down and dissing myself and telling myself I couldn't do it or I wasn't capable. And so cleaning up all of that was the first part of my journey, and it's the first part of the journey I take people through. And then two, the
Mhm.
writing is such a key piece to that because the writing allows you to get it out of your head and actually be able to stand back and look at like what's hanging out in your head, because then you can look at the results you're getting in your life and be like, how is what's hanging out in my head related to the
Mm.
results I'm getting? And if I don't like the results I'm getting, how can I clean up my internal world? And as I did that, as I started to clean up my inner world, all of a sudden, like everything around me started to look different. It's like it changed shades. And yet none of those people changed. None of my circumstances changed. And then all of a sudden, it's like new options became available, or I could, go right instead of left. It's like everything started to change as I cleaned up the inside.
Wow, I never thought of it that way, but that is really, really great insight. I'm thinking about the mind and how powerful it is. It's something that I talk about on the show all the time. And I was, as you were saying that, almost feeling like this light bulb moment of, oh my God, like how powerful is the mind? And I think the mind connects with the soul and our heart too. And I'm thinking, I always think of it. I'm a big sports fan. So I think about like heart and the drive of a athlete, and you got someone who's just freaking talented, is all, the most talented player of all time, but they don't have that mindset. And after a couple years, they're out of the league. And you could apply this to yourself personally with your family or your business. It's like, man, the thing that really drives someone that's going to separate them from just being good at something or from going from not so good to eventually great is that mindset, that determination, the ability to want to go to that level. There's something there, and it really does start in your mind. I've had some really days that started off pretty sour, and I remember, just recently I paused myself and I said, how would I feel right now if financially I had everything I wanted, if I had all the possessions I wanted and the people in my life that I wanted in my life? How would I feel? I could actually choose to feel that right now, even though there's some disconnect in
Mm.
some of those areas. And I was getting a lot of bad energy from a few things that happened that day. Um, I chose to stop and actually live in the moment as if I had all the things I already was looking for. And it's crazy how my tone in my next email sent, my next Zoom call went great. Everybody was smiling at the end of it. And it was like I actually controlled that. It's really insane to think that we have this amazing ability, this computer in our brain and our spirit and our heart that we do have a lot of control over. And I think a lot of people forget that we have that control.
So true. I love that example. And, a lot of times I'll ask my clients, like, what is it that you want to feel? Just like you did, right? What is it that you want to feel? Well, I want to feel connected, or I want to feel gratitude, or I want to feel, peaceful. well, then what can you do right here now today to generate those feelings? And it's amazing what opens up, just like you described. And then it's like everything kind of rippled from there. And it's, I think with busy, high achieving people, we often are living for someday. We're working so hard now for that someday. And I tell people, like, if you don't know how to live right now, if you don't know how to be present in your life right here where you are, you won't know how to do it when you get there. And so it's so
Mm-hmm.
important to like build that muscle that you just described, is how can I take care of my feelings? And if I'm feeling sour, what do I want to feel? And what action is going to move me closer in that direction? And taking a little time every day to just set yourself up that way. Like that's what we talked about why I get up so early, but that's why, because I spend a good hour, you know, praying, writing, reading sometimes, or listening, and moving my body to get my mind on the right track so that I can create a great day or increase the likelihood, right, of that happening.
Yeah, I love that you identified what it takes for you, which is that hour of time to move your body, to have a peaceful moment, no computer, no phone in front of you, no social media. You separate yourself, and that's kind of your Zen time. That's Carla's Zen time. And it's a non-negotiable in your schedule. And everybody listening, I want you to think about what's your Zen time that's going to allow you to get there so you're on track for the day. Because for me, a lot of times I start the day, even though I preach this on my show, be great and be grateful. Start your day in gratitude, end it in gratitude. There are days I wake up and I already have, 3 text messages and 47 emails. And it's really hard for me as I'm having breakfast and kind of looking at my phone and before I go into my first meeting, where I start to react to those things instead of saying, hey, I can get back to all of this. I need to go have some Mike Zen time, kind of think of my gratitude for the day, do what's going to set me up so I can get on the track, like you just said. And now I can handle those text messages. I can handle those emails properly from the right place. And it's better to be, if it's 5 minutes of a delayed response, even if it's 5 minutes of Zen time, is better than zero. And if it's an hour and that's what it takes for you to really be on track, then I think that's absolutely beautiful. And, I know that you've been getting up super early, like four in the morning. So there's no excuses, guys. If we say like, I'm not an early, like I don't get up early. Like if this is important to you, you will do it. And I'm talking to myself right now. I'm someone who works hard from noon to midnight every day. My day starts a little bit later. So usually like 10 o'clock is my first meeting, but it's because I go until like midnight, sometimes 2-3 o'clock in the morning. So my shift is just a little different than most people. But I know that if I wanted to have an hour Zen time, I could wake up an hour earlier than I am now, and I can have it. I can make that choice, and we can all make these choices. That's really well said, Carla. What we're going to do is actually take a quick break. We're going to give our sponsor some love, Social Chameleon, and our bookkeeper as well, Navigating Your Books, Navigator Bookkeeping. We're going to hear from them in 1 second. We'll be right back with Carla Reeves. Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you, and that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight, and Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today. Hey guys, it's Mike. I'd like to give a proper shout out to Navigator Bookkeeping. Look, for a long time, I ran my business without really understanding the full financial picture. I used my gut and my bank account balance to make decisions, which led to some poor choices and constant stress over my business's finances. I knew something needed to change. At the beginning of 2021, I made a decision that helped pave a more clear path for my business. I started working with Navigator Bookkeeping. Since then, my bookkeeping has been handled for me. I now understand the full financial story of my business, making important financial decisions much easier now, and it helps me plan for where my business is going. I highly recommend giving Navigator Bookkeeping an opportunity to help your business. Check them out at navigatingyourbooks.com. Again, that's navigatingyourbooks.com. It's time to know the full financial story of your business. All right, we're back in action with Carla Reeves. Remember, you can connect with her on social media. Her website is carlareeves.com. Check out Differently, her podcast. I was on there again. Go back to April 6th. Actually, go back and just listen to any of the episodes. They're all great. But if you want to hear my story on Carla's show, that's the day that it aired. So, Carla, let's keep this thing rolling. This is one of my favorite conversations. As I mentioned to you kind of off camera, this podcast is connecting with people on this level. It's a deeper level. It's having a cup of coffee, but really kind of learning about the soul that's sitting in front of me and their backstory and what really makes them tick. And I just love it. It's like opening up this world of somebody's life, whether it doesn't matter how many years it is. It's just these incredible experiences. And I really appreciate you sharing yours with us today. Let's kind of keep this thing moving. Before the break, we were talking about what things go into your day to help you unlock some of that fulfillment, right? So another thing I think that holds people up from getting fulfillment is having limiting beliefs. So talk about some of the things that maybe your clients or people that you're coaching, some of the common denominators of the limiting beliefs that you see, and then how can you actually help people rewire their mindset so they can get through that?
Yes, that's a big question.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that comes up quite often with my clients and something I had to navigate myself too is that they often feel like life is chaotic and they feel like they have no power, which we've talked about a little bit. They feel like they don't have enough white space or free space in their life. And they just don't feel like their life is moving forward the way they want it to. And the limiting beliefs that I find come up over and over again are one for achievement driven people. Often their identity is collapsed in what they do. And so they feel like, and this usually goes back to a very young age where, maybe they were the oldest child and took on a great deal of responsibility at a very young age, or they just learned that by doing and performing, they got that love or approval or accolades that they needed. And I call this your survival model. But we all have a survival model that's made up of beliefs and ways of thinking and ways of doing things that literally created a lot of success in our lives. But often people reach a certain point, kind of like I did, where it's like these check boxes and these actions aren't really moving the needle in the way that I anticipated they would. And so it's time to like stop and go, all right, we need to do something different. And that's when, my belief is that you got to go back to that foundation of beliefs and your thinking. Just say, how is what's there driving your results today? And how can we challenge the heck out of what's there? Because while we can't go back into your life and change some of those painful events or hurtful events or even just circumstances that weren't ideal, we can go back and look at what you decided about yourself because of that. And that's where I think the richest stuff is, because often at, 8 or 9 or 10 or 12, we made decisions about ourself and what we're capable of and who we are. And it feels like, even though it's not truth, it feels like truth because we've thought it so many times over the years. And so one of my favorite things is to help people go back and kind of start to chip away at that stuff and say, is that really true? Is that real? In your young mind at 10 or 12, you could have latched on to all these ideas, but you latched on to this one. And it's,
Yeah.
debilitating to you. And so if you created it, you can also change it. And that's where it gets super exciting, because they have a lot of evidence that can line up with other ideas about them too, which are far more empowering.
I got this really weird visual when you're talking about this, kind of an analogy. I'm a very analytical, like analogy thinker too. And it's almost like a bedroom that has like a bunch of bookshelves on it, and the books are all over the place. And like over time, things get disheveled, and someone spills a cup of coffee, and maybe there's a stain, but it can actually be cleaned up, or at least some of it can be cleaned up, and there might be a lighter stain, which could be something that someone really says hurtful to us that we can work on it. We can get some of it gone, but there's always going to be a little bit of that, especially if it's like a family member who does something, maybe somebody gets cheated on. It's like that stain is probably never going to go away completely, kind of thing, but we can work through forgiveness, and the bed's not made and all this stuff. And it's like over time, we can tidy up and we can really work on ourselves and get it to be close to pristine. But human beings are not never 100%, right? I mean, we're human, right? There's nature there. There's things that our imperfections are in many ways what makes us beautiful too. But that's kind of the weird visual I got, and it's like cleaning things up and tidy. It's like you were talking about earlier. You're getting all that kind of yuck out of yourself, which are things that you were told that you started to believe, and those beliefs became limiting beliefs because you believed them. And you know what's incredible? Like, I just want to say something real quick, and I'd love your feedback on this. Like I said to you, I've interviewed, 185 now, amazing people, and the most successful people I've met, like whatever that means to you, whether it's finances or where they're at in life with different things they're doing, um, everybody, has something in their life that can take them to a darker place. And it's just like it just depends on how much work you've done on it. I've seen people speak on a stage, and you see this guy or gal, and it's like they're so put together, they got it all. This is where I want to be. And then they talk about this one story about their aunt or their grandfather or their grandma, or when they were in an orphanage, and you're like, oh my God, they're going back there. And there's this like that stain I was talking about that never totally gets off of there. And they get teary eyed. So, you know, that's kind of how I'm thinking about it is over time, you keep tidying up. I love your response to that.
Hmm. Yeah, well, 2 things. One is that it is a practice. I often joke that, you know, I might when I'm leading a workshop or something, like, I might be over here teaching this, but it's not because I have this completely mastered. It's because I need it so much that I have to teach it every day. Like, it helps me keep this work alive in my own life. And then secondly, this idea of cleaning up the room. I often say that to clients, like it's kind of like we're this house. And so I feel like the work I get to do with people is about, a lot of times we'll shut doors and they're dark and the blinds are closed. And like we don't want to go in those rooms because they feel painful or scary. And I feel like, helping people open those doors and open the blinds and let the air flow through the house and let the light in, like that is what it's about. It really is. And what can feel so scary inside of us to open that door, it's just not as scary as our mind wants it to be. And when you let a little air in and a little light in, it's amazing what can start to happen.
Yeah, and what's cool is it may be scary to walk through that door today for somebody, but as they build their armor and they sharpen their sword and they get stronger over time, 2 years from now, they get go in that door, they open it, and the room is like, oh no, look how much they improved. Like they're gonna be able to defeat us now. Like before they didn't have all the tools, they didn't have that sharpened sword. They didn't meet with Carla for 2 years getting great coaching. Now the whatever those the goblins in that room that were causing you to be afraid to go in there, you can really handle them because you have the proper coaching and the armor and everything that comes along with that. So there's that analogy again. I wish we had some more time. I'm going to have you on the show again at some point. We can continue this. I know we're both running out of time here, so I'm going to kind of jump to one of my last questions. Let's wrap up with this one. We'll put kind of a bow on this whole thing. So you're the author and protagonist in your own life story, and you get to write the ending. And God willing, you continue to live a long, prosperous, beautiful life. You're looking back on it and you're reflecting, and you get to define your legacy. What would it be?
Hmm. I mean, I think part of my legacy is for sure our marriage and our family and just what we're doing in our home in our family life. But the other part of my legacy is building what I kind of call today is the School of Lifepreneurship, which is really teaching and empowering people and giving people the tools to be the entrepreneur in their own life so that they can live really a created life. You don't have to be at the mercy, that you can be ongoingly practicing and working and inventing your life and creating a future that really inspires how you're showing up today. And over time, those little shifts, those little tiny shifts that you're making today ripple to that larger change and life that you really, really want in your heart. And you said something earlier. You said, like the heart, the soul, and the mind. And I talk a lot about alignment, but it's really working to get those things aligned. And when you do, things start to flow with greater ease. There's more joy, there's more fulfillment, and you feel like you're at the helm of that, co creating that instead of at the mercy of that. So that's my mission.
I love it. I say this often on the show because I have incredible guests, but you're doing it. You're already starting this legacy. It's not something that you're writing it into your calendar for 25 years from now. Oh yeah, we'll get to that in retirement. You're doing your legacy now. You're building these small wins. You're doing, as you said, it doesn't happen overnight. Earlier you made that comment. You're building it up. You're kicking the doors in those different rooms in your own home, and then helping your clients knock down those barriers as well. Something that I wanted to say about this conversation is these are things that I know already and that I talk about often on the show and that I reflect on in gratitude daily. But it's still super important to have this conversation. It's important for people to hear this, to apply it to their lives. Going to go with sports again for another analogy. But the best of the best don't just like cancel practice. They still go and show up. They still shoot hoops. Like the reason Michael Jordan was great isn't just because he showed up on game day and was great. Like think of all the shots he took in practice that nobody even saw him take, leading up into the game-winning shot. So in life, like yeah, I could say, yeah, I've had this conversation or similar, or I've heard people say these things in a different way in their own story. It's like, okay, I could have learned that the first time. It's not that I didn't learn it then and I'm not learning it today. It's like, this is a practice. This is stuff we need to talk about over and over and over again. And even when you do have it figured out, guess what? If you go into autopilot, everybody, they come creeping right back in. Somebody says something, the dagger hits you and you're back to needing to clean up that room again. So this is not something that you learn and you're done. Life happens continually and you need to be proactive so you can continue to thrive and you can do life differently as Carla does. Any last words you'd like to say before heading out?
Just a reminder to your listeners that what I find in, over a decade of coaching people is that you're so much closer than you realize to the life you want to live. And it's often just a lens or a way of thinking that prevents you from actually experiencing it. So get out your journal, start getting the stuff out of your head, and start intentionally choosing what you're going to allow to hang out in your mind, because it's definitely having an impact.
I agree. Really well said. Yeah, a lot of times there's that picture of the guy who's like digging for diamonds, and you see he's going all the way from here to here, and the diamonds are here, and he's turned around and he's giving up, but they're literally right on the
Yes.
other side. And it's just a couple more small victories, whatever that looks like for you, away from really setting yourself up. And yeah, many I agree. I've seen people who are so close to where they want to be, myself included. And it's just a couple more right moves to get to where you're at. And then you may take 6 steps backwards and you only needed 2. Okay, fine. Well, now you're going to make the right 8 steps to get there anyways. Like, fine, you took a little bit of a detour, but you can still get right back at it. So, Carla, love this conversation. We'll love to have you on Mic'd Up again. Everybody knows what we say at the end of the show. You know what to do. Be great and be grateful. And Carla, I am extremely grateful to have you as a friend and as an awesome guest on Mic'd Up. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for hanging with us all the way until the end. If you haven't done it already, you can click right over here to subscribe to my channel. Make sure you turn on your notifications so you're notified of all of the updates. If you guys like shorter clips, I have mic drop moments right here. That's when my guest gives an amazing insight, and we capture that right here. Mic drop moments, and down here are the full-length episodes. All my previous episodes are right there.